Jason Reimers with BCM Environmental and Land Law. I would just like to raise, before we even reach the substance of the hearing, that this matter, that appeal should be dismissed for a few reasons. It wasn't a timely appeal because a full appeal with a full abutters list was not submitted. In my letter, 8 people were on the abutters list. There should have been many more than that, and I attached the additional people as an exhibit to my letter. But additionally, the appeal was first filed by 3 people, or by Mr. Fournier, Mr. and Mrs. George, and Mr. Ferris. And then apparently, because it was brought to Mr. Ferris's attention that he doesn't have standing to bring an appeal or to appeal one of your decisions to the Superior Court, a new version of the appeal was submitted without Mr. Ferris's name. But it's clear to me that this is Mr. Ferris's appeal. I wonder whether the named applicants are even familiar with the allegations in the appeal. And so I would ask that for those 2 reasons, lack of standing and because it wasn't a complete appeal, that it be dismissed procedurally.
Is the entire board in receipt of our response?
It was sent out to everybody.
Okay.
Or may I just amend, if you are going to hear the appeal, I think it should be the appellants, the named appellants, that actually assert the appeal. As Mr. Ferris doesn't have standing, which the law has changed in the last few months regarding standing. You have to be in a butter now, no longer a person aggrieved, from across town.
Right.
And so I would ask that, and he's not a licensed attorney to represent any of the named appellants either. So if you're going to hear the appeal, it should be the people who purportedly brought the appeal who bring the appeal.
Go ahead.
I think then, to that end, what you have to get at is the definition of a butter and exactly who that is. I'm not convinced it's all 31 of the people on this list, but it's definitely some of them. And certainly the applicant should have been notified. So I think to answer his question, what we need to look at by definition is the zoning ordinance's description of what an abutter is. And if we do that, in my notes I put, it's a person whose property, so property, my idea of a property in this thing would be the mobile homes that people own, but they don't own the land. Further in the description, then it refers to land. Any person who can demonstrate that his land will be directly affected. So the way I interpret that is that the abutters who should have been notified that weren't were the ones who are directly across the street from the 2 properties, along with the applicants they have to send themselves one, and as opposed to having to notify every mobile home in the park. So I think that's what we would have to look at first, is that not all abutters have been notified in accordance with the Town of Troy zoning ordinance. Abutters are in the very back of the zoning ordinance. Definitions. Any person whose property is located in New Hampshire and adjoins or is directly across the street or stream from the land under consideration by the planning board, for the purpose of receiving testimony only and not for purposes of notification, the term abutter shall include any person who is able to demonstrate that his land will be directly affected by the proposal under consideration.
I would submit that last part is no longer
That's what's not
legal.
So we need to update that?
I don't want to give you legal advice, but yeah, that's from the person's aggrieved language that the legislature amended. And I agree with you that at least there's some abutters outside of the park who were not on the list. And then at the very least, depending on how you interpret the statute, at least the people in the park around these two house sites
Yes.
are no doubt abutters.
And it's generally the responsibility of the applicants to provide a correct butter list. Have we ever notified the people making the appeal?
Yes,
You know what?
I
We have in
sent
the
them,
past, or we did this time?
I've always sent in a letter
Okay.
to,
So that was done apparently.
But the actual applicant wasn't actually on the list. And they found out about
But
it.
they're not in a butter. Well,
Correct.
they are butters. So the applicants are butters. And they were notified along with everyone else, is that correct, Abby?
yes.
Okay.
Not Colonial Mobile
No,
Home
wait,
Sales.
I think something's,
There
Okay,
were
what are we
also,
talking
Sorry, and I
about
don't mean to mix up
specifically?
the
Go ahead.
the words applicants and appellants.
So you have an abutters list, and on the abutters list, it specifically outlines the abutters. And on each of the beginning pages, or at the heading of each of those abutters list pages, is the name of the applicant. But in the abutters list, the applicants, both Mr. Fournier and the Georges, are not listed in the abutters list. The ZBA clerk did take it upon herself to mail notices to those people, but only at her discretion. They were not listed on the abutters list. They were just named as applicants.
but the people across from these two properties were not notified.
Correct. And not on the list and not notified.
I don't think your nice little map showed up in the packet.
It's hard to read the
Oh.
map that you sent, it shows who was notified and who, just because it's small and has to fit into the page.
You mean this one?
That one.
Yes,
You want to see it?
well, I have it. Can somebody show me
Is that separate in here?
It was,
where the two lots are? It's hard for me to understand where those are exactly here.
These are the two lots right here.
Okay, these two.
Yep, they're actually not highlighted in blue, they're the two spots right there.
Oh, I see, okay, so for everyone else, the two white spots in between the blue spots are the properties in question. And so the notification should have gone to one on either side, everything in red here. And to directly across the street, which is here. So the two white dots right here are the two mobile homes that have been placed there.
Is it okay if I add something? Even in the most conservative interpretation of the definition of butter, which the one in our zoning is outdated, even if we use that one, it would certainly include the town of Troy, which is the highway department across the street. Even if you're not trying to figure out what property means as opposed to land, the town of Troy certainly is one, and that was not on the abutters list and was not notified.
So we need to make a motion to,
Well,
we gotta.
Can I just
Request
ask,
it, yeah.
are we just trying to throw this out on a technicality? I mean, we have 20 people here that came have the conversation. It feels like we're just kicking the can down the road to avoid kind of talking about this.
Well, may I respond to
Yes,
that?
absolutely.
This board in particular has a job to do, which is to make sure that all of the procedural aspects of any case are met. And I certainly appreciate that everybody showed up. I think that we can help the applicant by saying, this doesn't meet the criteria, and decide which of those people that have been missed on the, because I expect the application's gonna come back. But at least give some clear guidance as to what a butter means now, since ours is outdated.
Doesn't it just mean strictly the abutting properties? Because nobody in the park would need to be notified, because they're not the landowner.
That's what that's what.
They're not the landowner, so how are
Just put
they-
outside,
Well,
let's,
their land's
let's
not
ignore
affected,
that
so
for
they're
now.
not landowners.
Okay.
But according to the statute, whether they're landowners or not, it's got the end of the statute, 672(3), has a specific section on cases of manufactured housing parks, and it says, the term abutter includes the manufactured housing park owner and the tenants who own manufactured housing which adjoins or is directly across the street or stream from the land under consideration. So, because of that, that incorporates all of the houses surrounding this site, which is at least 1, 2, 3, it looks like 4 or 5. So in that way, the statute changes the normal word of butter.
no,
So it doesn't come back procedurally, we need to go ahead and suspend and reconvene once all requested abutters have been notified.
that's one solution.
And if that solution was the
But
one
we
that the
don't,
board
because
decided to
that's
go
gonna be
with, we
the
could
main
reimburse
Council.
the application fee, which was, it's not written on the
Well,
application.
the cost of
How much?
notifying the abutter
$280.
is already. Okay,
Could I make one thing and then I'm gonna leave? I think the definition of the, who should be notified should include, like, at the intersection of Dort and Monadnock, my house on 69 Monadnock Street. And at least 4 times in the last 3 years, the trailers have been dragged across my property and blocked up Monadnock Street for several hours and required the police and everybody to come in. And it's caused significant problems, significant problems. And I'm not a direct abutter, but I'm directly affected. And I think you should look at that, expand who should be notified, because I heard about this only in background. And honestly, I'm getting tired of having the trailers dragged across my property.
Relevance.
And-
Yeah.
and-
Sorry.
But I think you should expand.
It's not something that our board,
Yeah, but when you're talking
It's not
about who should
something
be
that-
notified,
that's
it's
required to
directly
do.
affected in the ordinance, and we're directly affected. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as it relates to this butter situation, Secretary, or, I'm sorry,
Clerk.
the clerk and I went back and forth on this specific issue, and there's emails, I don't know who she spoke with about it specifically, but her response was, "Good morning. I'm sorry for the delayed response. I was trying to get a solid answer regarding the butters. Please disregard my last request. We'll go forward with the current list of butters." So on. The issue is that there is no tax map or plan in this town that shows who those internal abutters are. I requested it, been told it doesn't exist. There's no record that clearly demonstrates who those people are and what their address is. So again, if there was a plan, a tax map, anything like that, would agree. And that was the discussion that was had in the office here as to how to address that. I don't know if the chairman had a chance to have input on this email from the clerk, but that's why they weren't, it wasn't a lack of.
yeah, I understand that. As far as the internal, quote, abutters, as you're claiming in the trailer park, when I read the ordinance about notifying trailer park things, it seemed to be the other way around, where there was something going on outside of the trailer park. as opposed to being inside the trailer park, the requirement to notify. So if the land across the street was having something, then you might have to notify them, but it didn't seem to call out that in this condition they needed it.
I would say it's the opposite in the statute.
Mr. Chairman, I would concede that he is correct about, in principle, about what he is saying. That the abutters immediately abutting those locations should have to be notified. But there needs to be a record in the town of who those people are and what their addresses are, and there is none.
There are tax cards for every property in there. Those are roads that are 911 listed.
Why isn't it on the
inside
tax
the
map?
park.
Why aren't they on the tax map?
One parcel.
Because it's one parcel.
Mhm. So where's that information? How do you, there's no map showing it. There's no drawing saying what the address is of the abutters. There's nothing.
There's one showing the town of Troy right across the street, which is a large abutter on the other side of the park, and that was not,
We're
they were
told
not
that
notified.
Town of Troy did not need to be notified in this case. We specifically discussed that. Again, we discussed all of these abutters in that office as to
Right.
what we were gonna notify. If you guys want to continue this, notify all these people that it will be continued, and give me or assist me in finding out the names of those people that you guys want notified, we're happy to do that. Again, I attempted to do it in the office. I didn't ignore it. I knew the law. Again, I can see that the attorney here is correct, but we didn't have that information, and apparently, you guys weren't confident giving us that information at that time as to who those abutters were.
And this brings me back to my second reason for dismissal, is that Mr. Ferris has no standing to bring an appeal to the
I've been
ZBA,
hired by these people to represent them.
or then,
He's not an attorney.
You're not an attorney.
Don't have to be an attorney to represent them here.
Is that true, Mr. Fournier?
Yes,
You paid him to,
yes. How much? I don't think that's your business.
okay? Is the Georges here?
I am. My husband's sick right now.
Okay, Mrs. George, did you pay him to
Yes.
represent you?
Yes.
Okay,
I mean, we've had non-lawyers.
that's
present
fine, we just wanna know.
in the
So,
past.
I make a motion to suspend this hearing until we can.
Well, we haven't started the hearing.
Well, we have nowhere to go. We have nowhere to go here.
Well, if we haven't started the hearing, then we reschedule it,
We're gonna have to because.
then all the butters need to be notified.
If we, well, that's the thing, if we move forward in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be somebody's legal counsel's issue that what they claim to be a butters is not notified. So we gotta,
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say, man.
How many Colonial Drives are in Troy? Anybody know?
No.
There's one.
One.
How many Garden Ways are in Troy? Anybody know? There's one. How many Pine Courts are in Troy? There's one. They're all in the park. All of these can be found on Google Maps. These are 911 addresses. These can absolutely be found. If you find the addresses, you go to the tax card, you get all that stuff is right online.
That's not a town document. Google is not a town document.
It doesn't matter that Google would lead you to the town documents that lay out exactly what the names
Mr.
of
Ferris
these
said
people
that
are.
there's no town document that specifically.
They're online. I could bring them up for you right now. I can bring the tax cards up for you right
Can
now.
you furnish that?
I mean,
Tax cards do not tell you. If you look on a map, it does not tell you what the addresses are. In fact, if anyone wants to type in 4 Garden Way and 6 Garden Way right now, see what Google shows you, see what Zillow shows you. It doesn't show you what's on the ground. It shows you different things. It shows you 3, it shows you 5, it shows you different addresses on Garden Way. In fact, I think if you Google 4 and 6, one of them doesn't exist at all. I'm pretty sure, because I did it. I attempted to do this, and I came to the
that's
town.
something we can,
Right.
contact the select board. and,
Yeah, we can get that cleared up,
Yeah.
and I attempted to at the office. And again, I don't know.
How are we not gonna end up right back in the same, couple of things. A, the 30 days to appeal this has expired. It's on them to make sure that the abutters list is correct. At the very least, they didn't notify all the abutters that are clearly laid out around, including the town of Troy. That alone is clear in above itself. So giving the applicant more time, or its representative more time, is extending beyond the 30-day appeal period.
So isn't
That
that
is expired.
violating like the spirit of the law? We're here because you guys supposedly did something wrong. So we're gonna go on a technicality because or
So-
the time limit expires.
So I can speak to that.
That's wrong.
So the ZBA has 45 days to start one of these hearings. And it's the ZBA's responsibility to meet as quickly after receiving one of these applications to determine whether or not the validity of the application exists. They have the right to return the application and the fees that came in with the application to the applicant. If there's enough time left in the 30-day period, that applicant can resubmit. They didn't do that. That, unfortunately, is why we're all here, because they should have had that meeting. We're a small town, so we make mistakes, but they should have had that meeting ahead of time, and they didn't have that. So we wouldn't even be here. All this discussion about whether or not the abutters list was complete was happening 4 and 5 days after the deadline anyway. These emails that he's referencing is on the emails that I was getting was on the 21st and 22nd when you guys were conversing with the attorney about whether or not the abutters list was correct. And the timeline had already expired. And the applicants actually had plenty of time to do this because the first application came in on the 23rd, which was 4 days after the permit was issued, and they had a chance to resubmit the entire thing. So they've had 2 swipes at this. How many more swipes are we going to give them?
Why weren't we notified in 2022 when I emailed you and then you proceeded to lie to me about your plans for the park? And I have that email. We were never notified then.
Notified about what?
Notified about all the things that were going on at that park.
Oh.
You just started ripping down trees, doing all kinds of things. I went to you, no intention of causing you problems. You told me you were gonna keep that tree line, that you were not gonna touch that tree line on Big
I did.
Lake. You have destroyed our property value. You literally, I believed you, Ben, I believed you. Because
I left the tree line there.
I know your mother, she's a great lady.
Yep.
I believed you. That was a blatant lie. We weren't
I
notified.
left the tree line there. That's exactly what I
You
left
did
there.
not leave a tree line there. I can take a picture of it. You can see I have a fence just to block out the light, the noise. I can promise you that you did not leave a tree line there. I have pictures before and after.
So the grievance is some vendetta from 2 years ago. That's
But-
just been announced to the entire board. So that is not relevant to what has been brought here.
That's not the only grievance. I'm just saying, if you're so worried about abutters being notified properly, when I came to you as an abutter, which is how I introduced myself to you, why were we not notified? Why have we not been notified every step of the way by you about the changes you're making down there?
So, Mrs. George, your fence, I don't like it. Why didn't you tell me you were gonna put it up? I really don't like your fence.
I really don't like the fact that you killed all the trees on Bigelow Hill Road. That fence protects my dogs.
Bigelow Hill Road.
You're missing my point. Is your right to put up that fence and my right to cut down the trees are exactly the same.
That fence was a reaction
Did you
to.
file an intent to cut when you cut the trees down?
I don't have to.
Why?
Because I didn't cut the trees for logging purposes.
Are you kidding me?
I didn't.
You even told your tenants that you were logging them. I watched you log them and I talked to your loggers.
The loggers, before I did the work and before the conversation that you and I are talking about, that was years before that.
That I have
We
literally
did
got
have an intent to
videos
cut.
and
And we had an
pictures.
intent to cut for that.
You did log
We're
it.
talking about 2 different things.
Okay,
here.
all right, this is, way off. This has nothing to do with this.
But it's what is going on in the background here. So
Yeah.
I digress.
Suggestions?
I think the first step is to make sure that procedurally it's done correctly so that everybody who has something to say, and I mean everybody, I'm of the opinion that if you live in this town and you don't like something that's happening and this is where it ends up, or that you wanna bring it forth, I believe everybody ought to be able to do that. That's my personal opinion. On the other hand, I also think that everything ought to be done by the book. I think the abutters should have been notified properly. I agree that it's probably really hard to get those names, even if you have the addresses, because they may change. I don't know how that all works down at the park. But I do think that we ought, it's my opinion that we ought to refund the $200 $80. I think we ought to get a legitimate and legal abutters list submitted with the next application when it comes. I don't really understand the,
Well, the problem is that there can't be another application because the time is expired. If we void this application, then they're over the notification date, unless we make an exception. We also have that ability to say.
right,
But if we do that, then we're sort of penalizing Ben and dragging the time out because he's unable to proceed with his project while while it's still under review.
What's the minimum time frame for notifying abutters between having them notified and having a meeting?
About 10 days.
So it was 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
so, see, my application doesn't have the case number, the date it was filed, the date it was accepted.
That's in the original application.
It's where? Because that would tell me about these dates we're talking about when you're just hearing it for the first time.
Mr. Chairman, for clarity,
It was.
the law does not say 30 days. It says a reasonable amount of time. It's up to the board to
Yes,
determine.
yes, but it's in our documentation for this board that it's 30 days.
Mhm.
Okay. But there's also, in the suggestions in our handbook says you can extend that if you think it's reasonable. And I'm not sure that our bylaws say that. So it's the way it is. I would like to see some advice on this.
Legal counsel?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I hear what you're saying, but I've also we got, I can't even talk about it.
We have to really start with notifying abutters as requested, otherwise that'll be a procedural question and that's what council will use.
I'm thinking,
So,
hang on.
mhm.
This is dated 10/14.
Where's this TJ? Can we have a short non-public session here?
Sure. Can I leave you with just a couple of thoughts before you enter into that? If it is in fact the will of the board to continue this and potentially grant the applicants more time, even though they've had plenty, it would be our wish to move forward with the hearing because we believe we'll win on the merits regardless anyway.
Is it listed in our handbook as to what we define as a reasonable amount of time?
Yep.
Well, I think
Do you agree?
it's 30 days to file, and I think it's 45 after that to have the hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
To appeal.
No, it's 45 to hold the hearing and then another 30 days to appeal the decision of that hearing.
Right.
So this is filed, what I have here as the signing agents on October 14th. So we,
All right, let's look at a timeline here. When was the building permit issued?
9/19,
Okay.
what, Ben?
September 19th.
That was for both?
Yes.
So it's 30 days days from that.
So this was filed within that first 30 days.
That's application number 2.
Right, the first application.
Application number 1 was never finalized, it was never paid for, and that's sort of the deciding factor. Because we get applications and people never pay for them, and they just never exist.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but application number 1 came in on the 23rd of September, and it was completely reviewed by the town's attorney and was determined to be invalid for what we assume to be standing on Mr. Ferris's part. So
Do we have
that all happened.
Is there,
So regardless of whether it was paid for or not, the town reviewed that. I do believe in the billing from Hoppick, he was responding to you, Steve, on your question about whether a stop work order was, when does that begin when an appeal is
I didn't
issued?
get involved in that.
Okay, it has your name in it, so that's why I'm actually letting you know, because your name is being used in that correspondence, like you were involved in that conversation.
was there
So-
a written notice from the town's attorney?
What's that?
Was it written notice?
So
On that from the town's attorney?
there's an invoice that shows the correspondence with the town's attorney, and the select board actually indicated to my brother and I in a
That there was
non-public
no
session.
standing,
What's that?
that there was no standing.
No, that's our assumption that there was no, the whole application,
So you
the
haven't,
whole
you haven't
application
seen,
was
you haven't
resubmitted.
seen that, the actual opinion?
No, they've been given to us.
See the
No,
opinion.
but right after
Only
that,
the fact that something went back and forth.
right.
Right,
Appeal
it
came
was-
in with Ferris's name, then we know there was legal advice, then appeal comes in with his name struck.
Right, so,
And we-
deductive reasoning would indicate that that's what,
Yeah.
And at the select board meeting, they did have a non-public session that they kept Ben and I in to discuss that specifically. We came out of non-public immediately because it really wasn't non-public, but they said at that point that there was no merit to the case. That's what the legal opinion said, and we're taking them at their word for it, so
Okay, so.
I don't know.
One option you might have here is to drop your motion to squash it and let it happen, and then you can always appeal. If you don't like the decision. If you get the decision you want, you're good and you're done. Just a thought.
well, I'll explain why it is we're looking for, to have this.
If we kick it out, it's not appealable at all.
Right,
in any
that's
way.
the point
I get that.
of having it kicked out entirely for procedural issues, is because of that, is that it's not appealable at all, and, if we go through with this and we win, they have the right to appeal, and how long does that process take? They're gonna appeal in 30 days, are you going to actually listen to it as a rehearing if there's no new information? You may not, and then they'll appeal it to the Superior Court, and we gotta go through there, there's a cost associated with that, we have an attorney for all of this, so procedure, that's why it's so important to get the procedure right on this thing.
Yeah, I
And
get
not
that.
give them extra time like on a whim, you know, if you're a day late, then the 30 days means nothing. You know, so
I get that, yeah.
if you wanted it to be 45 days on a regular basis, you should vote that into your procedural rules.
And if it had come in late, that would have been the case.
Yeah,
It's like-
I think effectively it will be late if you determine that the abutters list is incomplete.
Because we've had that in the past. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, I think there was a court case about, not this board as seated, but the Troy ZBA, where they heard something that was after the 30 days and the court threw it out.
Yeah, you just don't have jurisdiction.
There's case law,
Yeah.
so.
That would be our preference, but if it's the board's,
Come on in, Dick.
if the board decides that that's what in fact they want to do is use that latitude and liberally and grant that extra time, then we'd rather get it over and done with as soon as possible.
Yeah, if we're gonna go down the road of rehearing and kicking this thing down, just to hear it anyway, then let's hear it tonight. If you're going to dismiss it, which is our preference, because it certainly is procedurally not sound, then let's do that.
I'd be interested in hearing what the selectmen, one of them has to say about issuing the permits. And about why we're here.
And keep in mind, we are not in a public hearing at this point.
What are we in?
We're discussing
Sort of
whether or not we should
pre-hearing
accept it,
motions.
whether we should accept it.
Oh. Well, and I heard, Herb, I don't know, I think it was Herb, we did seek legal counsel on this. And, I think there are some things that Herb either left out or maybe he didn't think they were relevant. I think that they would be relevant. Town council for the selectmen has advised us that the petition, the complaint is completely out of line. My words, not his. It's a legal words for that. And the reason that it's out of line is that the special exception is the mobile home park. It's not the individual mobile homes within the park. So if the drugs were to remove every mobile home in there and let it sit vacant for 2 years,
Then,
then you would have an issue.
right,
But in the case where it's still, it was a mobile home park and it remains a mobile home park, and this is simply a swap out of inventory, whether it happens in 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years, doesn't affect the fact that that is a mobile home park. And it exists, and legally exists. So, we are of the opinion, our council is of the opinion, and we agree with them, that our permits were issued correctly and within the scope of Troy's existing zoning. There's a house of ever, which is that in the not unique but somewhat unusual case of Troy, even if we were wrong in issuing them, the Superior Court has held that the Select Board in Troy has the ability to issue permits, period. We've had that case and we've been to Superior Court on that case. We don't believe that we wrongfully issued permits. We believe that we're in the scope, as does our council, as apparently the Drugs Council does. If you were to,
okay,
so
just
that's it.
before you keep going.
Yeah.
What we're discussing is, they wanted us to basically void the application because the abutters weren't all, the proper abutters weren't all notified.
And we would agree with that.
Okay,
Because
that's-
we would agree with that because if you accept their legal theory that each individual mobile home is a separate event, then every abutter in the park would have to have been notified. And I don't believe that's what happened. Am I wrong in that?
No, you're correct.
Correct.
So again, on the advice of counsel, if you accept that theory, which we don't accept, then the complaint is defective in that way. So if you accept their argument, then you have to dismiss it because it's not correct.
That's a different way to look at it. I mean, I personally think that there's some debate as to whether or not the actual individual mobile homeowners need to be notified.
There was, what's your attorney's name?
Mr. Reimers.
You read out, some ruling on, some laws on, or rules on that as far as in the mobile home park, it's different as a butters. Can you read that to us again?
Yeah. 672:3. It ends with, for purposes of receipt, the term abutter includes the manufactured housing park owner and the tenants who own manufactured housing which adjoins or is directly across the street or stream from the land under consideration by the local land use board.
That's in our packet, that's in the packet that he submitted.
But-
Adjoins is
but
the,
in this-
adjoins is
in
the
this
term.
case, the land in question
Is across the street.
is your land, not outside of your land, and that's the way I read this, the way this was defined. Okay.
Right,
and-
but
and
the
I-
abutters are the tenants in the park. They own their own homes. They are property owners.
Right.
They are real estate owners.
And their homes
And
adjoin.
their homes are across the street and adjoin the land in question, which is where these two new mobile homes
Okay.
are situated.
So you as the trailer park owners got an abutter notification.
But that's saying each individual
I believe so.
No,
tenant.
but he owns the land under him, so he's.
Yep.
Right.
So would that be a notification also? That
Yeah,
should
we
be
have
done?
like 31 people that should have really technically
Right.
been
No, I'm just
notified.
talking
Yep.
your,
Yes.
Yes, yes,
Corporation.
us itself, yes, the
Yes,
park
the
itself,
park.
absolutely. Yep,
Because the applicants for the building permit is the mobile home sales company,
right,
not the park.
okay.
Different company.
I mean, I could go any which way on this, I'm not sure at all. But I know there was some question on notifying within the park. And legal advice on that said, well, could be either way.
The select board stands by the permits. We properly issued those permits.
Well, I don't doubt that. I mean, I don't doubt that you stand by it.
This was a one-to-one.
Not making a decision.
I'm sorry?
This was a one-to-one replacement, one unit comes out, one unit
Correct.
goes in.
And the complaint, as I understand it, is that the time period, the gap in time was over 18 months? Is that what, over a year? whatever.
greater than 1 year is what
Greater
the,
than 1
what
year,
the argument
yeah.
is, yeah.
That's the argument. It's not, there's a concrete, I mean, I'm not here to make their case for them, but I mean, there's a concrete pad there, it's always been a mobile home, it's gonna be a mobile home.
It can't be anything else.
It can't be anything else.
Yep.
This is absurd.
Agreed.
Housing for two families.
But we'd have to actually
Housing for two families.
hold the
Right.
hearing to discuss that. We're sort of in between here. So,
Again,
like I said, if they wanna drop their objections, we can have the hearing and see where we go.
We only wanna drop the objection if,
If you're gonna win.
well, no, that's not it, is if you guys are going to give extra time for the applicants, which we don't believe they deserve. They had extra time, they were notified earlier on, I mean, they were only 4 days after the applications were granted for the building permits. And they had a chance to resubmit, and they resubmitted incorrectly.
But respectfully, you
So-
can't have it both ways. I mean, by this point, we could have just been done with the conversation, right?
Well, you can't, yeah, but
You're
there's
not
important
paying for an
legal
attorney.
considerations. There's
I
important, so,
think it's fair, but it could be all
consideration.
done tonight,
Yeah.
right?
so, our
Not
position, I
necessarily.
mean, you have legal grounds to outright dismiss the appeal because the abutters list was incomplete.
And you're suggesting that also the time is run out at that point.
Correct.
Okay.
But
That's your position.
I agree, we're here, and if you're not going to dismiss it based on that, rather than, because there's a stop work order in place
Yes.
that
It's
has
it's
real
not fair
ramifications.
to
So if
spring
we're
this
gonna go
up.
another month,
I
you
get
know.
that.
Yeah, we would like to reach the merits tonight, but we're saying that you have valid grounds to outright dismiss the appeal.
Okay.
But just to be clear, but if you don't, we will waive that issue to move on to the merits of the hearing.
Will we discuss this now?
What's that?
Will the board discuss this?
Let's just discuss it right here.
I mean, frame and the butters were never notified. I mean, there's arguments that there's no way of contacting.
Yeah, the problem is that if we decide to postpone it and we have it now, then abutters haven't been notified, so technically we can't really have a hearing.
Right.
So it's like, we're in a catch-22 here.
For the record, each of those people that couldn't be figured out as to who to mail this notice to received a tax bill from the tax collector's office twice a year at an address that is publicly available.
Yes.
Okay. But there were properties missed outside of the park also.
As well? Okay.
Yes. So that's why I think that within the park is not important for this discussion.
Just one is all you need.
Yeah,
That was
just
missed.
outside of the
Yeah.
park,
Yep.
there's no one missed.
Just one abutter.
I know we,
And the applicant's required to provide the butters list.
yes.
Been there.
One last comment, not to interject on your deliberation, but it does state right in your applications for all the various things that you might be coming to the ZBA for, that the abutters list is the responsibility of the applicant. It says it right at the top. Like, it's very clear.
Anybody have any other comments, points to make? Want to discuss it further? I mean, this is totally uncharted territory
Yeah.
for us. So it might be just pure uncharted territory. That's why I was interested to see if there was any, thing where something like this ended up in court and there was a decision on it.
We looked.
You look, nothing.
It doesn't make it that far, because if the abutters list is incomplete, the application is typically returned along with the fee. That's normally what would have happened long before this, long before we're all sitting in a room notified with abutters, preparing to make testimony when we shouldn't even have gotten to this far.
Legally, if you have a deadline, you haven't submitted what's required for an appeal, it's like you didn't file the appeal.
Train left the station, you weren't on it.
Correct.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to not accept the application based on the fact that all of the abutters, as we've discussed, should have been notified weren't, and based on the timeliness of the application.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Anybody?
I feel like this just kicks the can down the road for a larger conversation with the trailer park. I mean, you have a lot of
I'm
abutters
sorry,
here.
I can't hear very well.
I feel like this just kicks the can down the road for further conversation, probably outside of this board, but I feel like you have a lot of butters passionate about what's going on in the trailer park, and there's not a forum to have that conversation.
And the ZBA is not a forum to have a general.
And I acknowledge that, for sure,
Right.
but I think, as the owners, it's probably something to keep in mind, right?
Sure. Yep.
Absolutely.
Where
Understood.
is the appropriate forum for that?
That would be the planning board, it would be town meeting discussing a proposal from the planning board, but it's not here. The public forum, start a conversation, whatever.
Mr. Chairman, for clarity, the email regarding the abutters that came from the clerk, who authorized that email?
Which email?
The email that said the abutters list was accepted as complete.
When did that happen?
I didn't say it was accepted, I said that we would move forward as it was.
But that was after the time limit was up, right? That was after the 30
I
days?
don't know that.
Yeah, so that was I mean,
I'm gonna read it again. Good morning.
What's
I'm
the-
sorry
what's
for
the
such a
date of that?
delayed response. I was trying to get a solid answer regarding abutters. Please disregard my last request. We will go forward with the current list of abutters. Public hearing is still scheduled for November 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Troy Town Hall. I apologize for the delay and confusion.
Accepted as complete, quote unquote.
Didn't hear that.
I didn't hear that anywhere in there.
We'll go forward with the current list of abutters.
Yeah, that's not,
Interesting.
but it's the ZBA's decision on whether the applicant.
yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen until we meet. so.
Right.
So,
Even if I was to get involved in that, I can't speak for the board on my own.
so we can use our discretionary time to allow the other butters to be added to this?
Well, the motion on the table is to,
No, because then we're way past timeframes and stuff. I mean,
And you said we have
it's the
set time.
applicant's, it's the applicant's responsibility to create the list of the butters. No, it's claimed that we can't find out who these people are,
well,
but that's not,
my point is that, forget within the trailer park. 'cause that's-
but even outside the trailer park was not notified, correct?
Yes,
So,
Can I ask a question? I mean, part of this is just I got dragged out here anyway, so I'm gonna give my 2 cents. But, right, just from a timing perspective, right, if you submit a list, you can't find out until this meeting whether or not it's complete. Like, aren't you already gonna be past that 30 days? Like, unless you just roll the dice and you hope the
No,
list is complete?
No, the way it normally happens is an application comes in and the applicant, fills out his part and gets the list of abutters. And once we've accepted it as complete, and in this instance, I think what we're trying to say is perhaps it should not have been. A mistake was made.
That's
was a
Colonial
mistake.
Drive, right?
So,
That's Colonial Drive, correct?
right.
So every owner of property on Colonial Drive is available online at NewHampshireTaxKiosk.com.
The question isn't every property owner on Colonial Drive. The question is who abuts 4 and 6 Garden Way. That is the question.
Dick's
That is
point,
what the law requires.
Dick's point is to his claim that you cannot find this information in
You
order
don't know what
to,
numbers
in order
those
to
are
give these.
because there's no drawing, map, or anything
I waited
else
until you were
in
finished.
town. Typically, an abutters list is created from a tax map. That's how they're created. There is no tax map outlining what lot numbers or whatever we want to call them within the park exist. There is no plan for the park on record in this town saying this is 18, this is 19, this is 2. I asked the question, what numbers are these so they can be notified? And then I received that email back from the zoning board of adjustment,
no, from the selectmen's
No.
office.
from the clerk, from your clerk.
No, she's not our clerk, she's our,
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to oversimplify what somebody is, but that is
she's
your
not a
community.
board member,
I understand.
okay? So that's,
So if we were to go and look at the tax maps right now for map, what is it, 11? What are the map?
11-3.
and
What it is, in there are there
map
separate tax
11?
maps
No,
for
because
every,
it's one lot, that's the point of this, is a non-conforming use that exists on the entire lot. Nope, but there's a 911 address for every single one of those properties in there, you can find the tax cards and all of the mailing addresses for every single one of those properties, the people that own those properties, and the law states specifically that those properties should have been notified.
Does not tell you which ones are which. There's nothing that shows you which ones are which.
The statute actually says all of them.
Yep.
So,
No, it
Yeah.
says all that abut, it mentions a stream, it mentions a road, across the street, does not mean all of them.
says all tenants, just says all tenants.
Oh, adjoin,
adjoining.
which adjoin the land.
or is directly across.
or
They're sitting
directly
on the
across.
land, that is as adjoining as you could possibly be.
But it's one piece of
Every
land.
single home on that lot is adjoining that lot. I don't know how you can interpret it any other way.
It's not a lot, for starters. Because they're not lots.
It's one lot.
The park
one
is a lot.
And every home adjoins that lot. That's what is under discussion right now.
It's not what, your attorney can read it again, but 672.3 does not say that.
What are you
He can
talking
read it
about?
again.
He
What's
just
the-
keeps
They're all
talking in
reading it,
circles
like
over
you
here.
said.
We have a motion on the table.
Yeah,
Sorry,
what's the
Mr.
motion
Chair.
on the table?
I think
That's fine, we're discussing.
Regardless of the interior of that one lot,
Mhm.
externally to that lot was not notified as well.
The town of Troy, is that what we're referring to?
Woodland Park was not notified either. The abutters regulation lays out specifically how you determine what the abutters are. And abutters that kitty corner you, based on the way the lines are drawn from your property lines,
They
Yep.
just touch on a point.
those are abutters as well. Woodland Park was not included. One of the, Solisle was not included. Landry was included,
Yes,
but
I was.
Solisle wasn't included.
I have the letter right here on my phone. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
but
here
there's
tonight.
two, you have two parcels there. One under
The
Landry.
other
and one
parcel
under-
does not abut you guys, we abut
By
town
the law,
property.
by the law, it abuts the
It does
property.
not.
It absolutely does.
It does not.
Well, the law defines
Yeah.
which ones abut.
Okay, just,
Pretty straightforward.
Get the map right here.
Oh.
It's not even close.
so, you wanna vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right, the motion on the table is to basically deny the application,
To not accept it
to not accept it.
is
Yes.
different than denying.
Not, yes, not a denial of the case, just a
Not accept the
unaccepted
application. Not accept the
application.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That's two. Matt?
Remember, it has to follow procedure. So it's not opinion, it's fact. And the fact is, the voters were not notified.
I feel like there's a lot more to this than, I feel like just kicking it out is probably not the best thing to do, but.
If we move forward with it and make a different decision, it'll be invalidated because the application was not valid. So we could not move forward. It'd be a waste of time.
So the whole process just starts over after this.
Well, then we'd have to extend the time to do that.
Which goes against our rules, which then causes more.
Are you still debating your vote with yourself?
When was this filed?
The date on it is the 14th of October.
When
We
was it?
were going through the 30 day and 45 day, so that's why I think we're looking at the calendar before.
Regardless, simply on the merits of non-notification of the abutters, that's it. If we were to move forward in any way, if and when this goes to court, we would be wasting our time. So it's really no other choice.
9? Okay.
Aye.
No tie, so I'm not voting, so you guys have it.
Thank you.
That was hard.
It wasn't,
Trying to do the right thing, you know? Isn't always easy.
So that means I'm gonna lift the stop work order on project? Correct.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm a building inspector, so that means I'm gonna lift the stop work order because you guys are throwing the application out?
Yeah, there's no
They
longer
were working on it today.
an appeal in place.
If there's a stop work order, why were they working on it today?
I'm not allowed on the property at this moment. It's a stop work order and they had a right to keep anybody from trespassing on the property, so that's where I'm
Somebody
sitting
lives
right
in there
now.
working.
I don't have the right to go over there and look at that right now, till the stop work order is lifted.
So you've got a stop work order,
Yeah,
but you can't go there to see if they're working?
he sent a no trespassing to me, I cannot trespass on his
Okay.
property. I have to follow
So
the
that
law.
means he doesn't have to abide by the,
I'm just telling you how it is, I
I'm
can't
telling
walk
you
on
how
his
it's
property, I mean, I'm not saying that it's right for him to move forward, I put a stop work order, which means stop work.
so
you
now
know,
because he
people
didn't
still-
stop work, you don't do anything?
I didn't see it, because I'm not supposed to be on that property.
In my
What do you want,
defense,
do you want me to break the law and trespass on his property after he sent me an
You
email
can, and it
telling?
doesn't matter?
But
You're
he
welcome to
sent
come
me,
in my driveway anytime and look at them.
in Mike's defense, he could access the property once he got a court order. So, he would have to have a court order for search of the property.
Have you been
I did got
doing work
approval
on
from
the
someone.
property?
The selectmen,
It's not any of our
the
business.
selectmen would have had to go to court and spend money to hire the town attorney to go to Superior Court to get an order to allow him to go on the property. And since we were having the hearing in a relatively short time frame, that did not seem a worthwhile effort. Because if we did that, we might not be in that hearing yet. So,
Also, technically, you don't have to do a stop work order because when the appeal comes in, you're supposed to stop work.
Well, that's what the lawyer said, and that's why we wrote up a stop work
Right.
order, and I delivered it to the property and called Mr. Drug and let him know.
But it had no weight.
But then I got an email from the town saying that we were not to trespass on the property until this was all resolved. So I guess if you guys are throwing it out, maybe a letter to Jeremy, so that way I have confirmation on an email to say that you guys are rejecting the application,
Not accepting.
or not accepting the application. Choice of words, correct?
No matter.
Okay, point of procedure, do we need to write up a decision on that?
And I also need you to lift the no trespassing, so that way I can.
Yes, absolutely,
You're welcome.
of course.
You're welcome tomorrow.
Yep.
Did you ask me to write it? Is that what you just said?
Totally ridiculous.
Wait, you wanna write volunteering?
No.
It sounded like volunteer.
I put the bullseye on my back, I get it.
I mean, this isn't,
It's in the form of a memo, if you look at the
Yeah,
ZBA handbook,
yeah.
it's a
It's
memo
not
to
a
file for your
formal-
records and for the town's records that the application was not accepted.
I mean, I have the
Should
no
be
trespassing here on my
a
phone.
copy of the complaint and a copy of the decision
Yeah.
should be in the property file as a permanent record.
yes.
Yep.
Alright, I'll get a memo out for tomorrow.
Thank you, Steve.
Can we set them up as a- Then we need to show it.
Yes.
No, you can write it. We can write it
It
together.
doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something
We can
so
write
so
it
you guys
together.
throw it out.
I'm just gonna put the facts, not our usual decision.
That was the old days practice.
We never
Okay.
had a hearing or heard anything.
Like that as well.
Steve, is that the Alexander on your docket?
Oh, okay.
Well, just normal
Yeah, 'cause
business,
that's the
approving minutes.
Wait.
The thing is that we can't get involved in enforcement.
Was that legal? We weren't really in a meeting.
Huh?
We weren't really in a meeting.
I would say.
Well, you opened the meeting, you didn't get public notice.
I don't think it ever got started.
Again, yeah. $200 in January.
I just heard that. That's ridiculous.
They paid $200 for 2 years.
For the record, right, I'm
New Hampshire.
not getting the medal.
So that goes for everybody that's
Well, we need to start a lot.
So it's
I'm gonna try to mail a copy of
Because in California, they just money away like, I think the highest compensated state is either the state legislature is either California or New Jersey. Yeah. And they get staff, offices, we don't do that.
Right, no,
We just need to go over.
We want to keep government small and local, and this works great.
It's silly, that's it.
There's no lack of people willing to show up. We have the largest, we have the third largest
I'll send you guys our response.
legislature in the English-speaking world. The largest is the Indian parliament, followed by the British parliament, followed by
Okay.
Do I have
Yes, no, Jesus Christ, don't go down. No, we will, the judge gave them till, he gave him 70 days. So, now, because we're in court, doesn't solve anything.
Scared me.
No, but yes, week after Christmas.
I know, I absolutely.
It's a pretty big sign they got hanging up down there. I was gonna say, I don't remember the full permit.
We have a 5-minute break.
More power.
Oh my God.
That was the guy that said, does he use it like this?
I will pause.